Who are you? You're not from here.
No, I'm a shepherd.
Is this how I'm to be remembered? Saul the Butcher.
There's a lion that kills our sheep.
You kill the lion alone.
Word of this will spread. You will be famous.
It's your name the people chant.
The people are turning on our father. Old kings must die to make way for the new.
I'm a humble servant of this court and fought for my country and for my king.
The Philistines march upon us.
We have 30,000 men.
Wherever you come, we will be there.
Meet my general, Goliath.
Who will fight me?
How is it that I've been anointed king?
Did you really think you could just come into my house and take what is mine? I am the prophet, and I am the king. I did not fear you. It's not me you should fear.
Hey brothers and sisters, welcome back to these Behaviour Revolution scriptures. New translation for the millennials, the oldies. Everybody is loving the clarity, the truth. Got a lovely comment yesterday from a guy who just said, it's not sugar-coated, you speak your heart, you speak real. You're going through stuff in every second video, and you're going through drama in your life, and you're going through this and that and this and that. We love how real this project is, and so everything that I thought was wrong with it, like I can't get it together, is actually what Yahusha is using, not just in my life but in yours too, to peek behind the curtain, Wizard of Oz inference, peek behind the curtain and say, look, we're all going through the same stuff. None of us are polished. We're all rough as guts, people from the world, and Yahusha's polishing us up to be his bride. We're all going through this, so thank you for those who are encouraging and those who are going through this project with me. It's just wonderful. It's been the most phenomenal thing I've ever tried to do in my life. It's been 2 years now, and we're going to keep going. We did the introduction last week or last month, I should say. It was a long wait. Been going through the ropes. But we're going to go into chapter 1 today of Samuel. So just looking at your screen here, just to recap, we ended the introduction talking about how everything that is happening in Samuel, in the book of Samuel, and how Yahusha is preparing the nation for a king. Everything that happened there is happening here, because Yahusha is now preparing us, So, and of course the moral of it was, do you feel like royalty? Do you walk around feeling like you're royalty? Do you behave, walk, compose yourself with the airs and graces of a monarch throughout your day? I haven't been. Downtrodden, not on. Yahusha will not have anybody touching his bride except him. It's between you and him. It's time to wake up. The kingdom is coming. Our inheritance is almost here. Those who want Yahusha will have him. Those who don't won't. This is the true kingdom behavior. That's where we ended our last introduction lesson. So we're going to go into chapter 1 today and meet a woman named Hannah. And this is amazing. Remember the context, guys. We are placed in this part of history because we are in the 21st century, planet Earth. This is where we've been placed, and everything in the scripture relates to us, but not always how we think. It's not just on the surface, that's how we've got to speak, and that's how we've got to dress, and that's how we've got to, wear beards and hats and zeets and all this BS that the religious people go on with. No, the context is often underlying, and it's got to be abstractly discerned from Yahusha. So as I said last episode, we're going to be talking about the kingdom for a while, because all these scriptures in Samuel and Kings are all about the books of the kingdom. Yahusha ushering in his reign into this dimension. He did it in the natural through King David and Solomon and that sort of thing. And then of course in himself as the deliverer, the Mashiach. But he's coming again. And who's going to prepare the way? Where's John the Baptist? Who's going to prepare the way? We are. Who else has got the truth? Who else is there? I mean, not with billboards, not with all that jazz, but in our behavior, one-to-one, however, whoever Yahusha is going to call us to work with, we are preparing the way. So keep that in the back of your minds, the context of Samuel and Kings, that these are all shadows, just like we went through the shadows of the feasts, and now they all find fulfillment in Yahusha. The shadows of Samuel and Kings about kingship and royalty. Many faceted, fascinating layers are to be found in his bride with him. So let's go on. Hannah. This is Samuel chapter 1. There was a man named Elkanah who lived in Ramah, a town in the hill country of Ephraim. His great-great-grandfather was Zoph. So Elkanah was a member of the Zoph clan of the Ephraim tribe. Elkanah's father was Jeroham, his grandfather was Elihu, and his great-grandfather was Tohu. And just to summarize all that in the green here, this information, plus a little bit from 1 Chronicles 6, connects this guy, Elkanah, all the way back to Kohath. Who was Kohath? One of the sons of Levi. Making Samuel actually a Levite. So we always thought he was an Ephraimite, Samuel, but he's actually, and I'm not going to take you on the journey, it's fascinating, but we're not going to go into that today, looking at the family trees and everything. He is actually related to the Levite tribe. He can be connected to Kohath, which was one of the tribes of Levi, making him a Levite. So that's interesting. That will be relevant in the coming chapters, the fact that he is a Levite. And Elkanah had 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah. And although Peninnah had children, Hannah did not, for she was barren. So already we've set the scene. 2 wives, one can have children and one can't. A man with more than one wife usually did so for status, since in the Middle East, having an heir was critically important. A man might marry a second woman if his first wife couldn't seem to produce him a son quick enough. And indeed, Peninnah produced an heir for Elkanah when Hannah couldn't seem to. So you can already see there's going to be animosity here, isn't there? One wife can have children and one can't. And once a year, Elkanah travelled from his hometown to Shiloh, where he offered sacrifices to Yahuwah of hosts at the tabernacle, where Eli was the high priest, and his 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were priests. This is the first time we hear mention of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, and it certainly won't be the last. It's also the first time, you'll notice normally in the narrative, in the narration, I change all these to Yahusha, sacrifices to Yahusha, but it was actually interesting. This is the first time in the text where Yahuwah of hosts is mentioned, of hosts. And we're going to go into that just for a short minute because it's amazing. Yahuwah of hosts, or Yahuwah Shabuot, is a brand new title for the Elohim of Israel. And the first time in the scripture it's discovered. It's not mentioned all in the other books. This is the first time that Yahuwah of hosts. So, but what does it mean? In Genesis, the term hosts, or Shabuot, speaks of both messengers, or angels, and stars. You know, the hosts of the heaven, or the hosts, it's either talking about messengers or stars. Constellations and all those sort of things. And notice in both cases, it's referring to bodies in the sky, or the ┕𝗪. So got that? Hosts generally refers to either angels, messengers, or stars. A host of something means it is a multitude, or it's a countless number. just like saying as many as the sand on the seashore. So when the scripture speaks of a host of angels or a host of stars, it means a huge amount, like an army. So Yahuwah Shabuot, or Yahuwah of hosts, refers to Yahusha, who is the master and Elohim of both the stars, visible, and the angels, invisible, each innumerable in quantity. So this majestic title for Yahusha, it is, don't just read past it, it's a title of majesty, majestic. We're dealing with royalty in these next topics. So this is a majestic title for Yahusha. It shows that he is the king and master over all the seen and unseen. In other words, both dimensions. He is the master over everything. And we might look at that and go, duh, we know that. But the scripture's confirming it. Just by that little statement here. Where he offered sacrifices to Yahuwah of hosts. Who knew that that little statement had so much majestic weight to it? Because hosts implies uncountable numbers of either angels or stars. Uncountable. So he's the host of not only angels and stars, but hosts of everything. And he created everything. Talked a lot about birds, hosts of birds, ants, millions, trillions, gazillions of ants, everything of creation. And in both dimensions, he is the host, the master, the king. It's a majestic title. So anyway, Elkanah has gone from his hometown to Shiloh to the tabernacle every year. And whenever Elkanah slaughtered an offering, he gave some of the meat to Peninnah and each of her sons and daughters to eat. But he always gave Hannah double the amount of meat because he loved her very much and he preferred her, even though it was Yahusha who was keeping her from having children. He preferred her. Even though she can't have children, he prefers her. We saw Jacob favouring Rachel over Leah in the same way. She couldn't have children for a long time either. In nearly every situation where a man has more than one wife or concubine, we find big trouble. Because it's simply not in the human nature of women to accept being only one of several in a man's household. And it's not in the human nature of men to love several women equally. But that's why it isn't Yahusha's pattern. That's why it's not the ideal pattern. Don't do it. It was cultural for a while there, but it was never Yahusha's ideal plan. One man, one woman is the definition of marriage. So it was Yahusha. This is interesting here because this we can relate to our lives. It was Yahusha who was keeping Hannah from having children. The scripture says that. Interesting. More and more we're seeing that the mindset is that whatever happens, this is the mindset back here in Hebrew ancient times, the mindset more and more is that whatever happens, whether good or bad, to the follower of Yahusha, is of Yahusha. The Hebrews rightfully had no problem with that idea. They just accepted it. No problem with the idea that Yahusha could send catastrophe or he could send blessing to one of his own. This is not popular in religion. This hasn't even been popular in the Nazrim or the bride. People think we deserve to be blessed. We are owed blessing because we've given up so much. We've lost we've that big pity party, which I've been a massive part of. We deserve it. No, not at all. And the Hebrews understood this. They weren't questioning what the source was. Is it demons? Is there another deity somewhere? Is there another power on it? No, they knew. Whether they were obedient or not in their lifestyle, they still knew that whatever happened, good or bad, was of Yahusha. The Hebrews rightfully had no problem with the idea that Yahusha could send catastrophe or he could send blessing to one of his own, according to his will. According to his will. Thus, it wasn't with a blaming attitude that Hannah was saying that Yahusha shut up her womb. It was just a matter of fact. It was with the simple understanding that nothing happens without Yahusha's approval. Nothing in your life happens, good or bad, without Yahusha's approval. So at the very least, Yahusha approved of her barrenness. Interesting. And we'll go a little bit deeper here. Because she's not a criminal or anything like that, as far as we know. She's just a normal person. She wasn't being punished for something massive. To Hannah's thinking, she'd either committed a crime against Yahusha, and this curse of childlessness was her punishment, or she hadn't. But Yahusha had his own purpose for closing up her womb. And in the sacrificial system in Leviticus, we dealt with sacrifices that were simply, we're not sure if we've done something wrong. We don't really feel like we're in the right place with Yahusha. Don't feel woken up and a bit unsure of my relationship today. So there's these special sacrifices here that you can offer up. Just in case you've done something wrong but you're not sure, just to keep Yahusha happy. There's those sort of sacrifices that went down. So this is a case of she didn't even know she'd done anything wrong, but it was still, either way, up to Yahusha that she was barren. So for a Hebrew wife or concubine to be barren, it was essentially viewed as disobedience to Yahusha, and the consequence was very public. Yes, it may have been suspected that the woman's body was malfunctioning and out of her control. However, that didn't make it any less her fault, and generally this was seen as a curse from Yahusha, resulting from some behaviour she'd done. So, plenty of people we've met in our lives who have taken a long time. I've had friends and family members who have taken a decade almost after marriage to be able to have children, and the devastation a woman goes through. It's not just in ancient times, even today, assuming you want children, the devastation you go through when your body won't, play along, won't do what it's meant to do. It's devastating for a woman. So this is the state that Hannah's in, and of course the other wife. Scripture calls her a rival wife. If you look up rival wife, it doesn't mean they were at each other's throats, but that's not the definition of it. They were just co-wives, really. So she's in this place, and Hannah's rival wife, her co-wife Peninnah, was bitchy and liked to taunt Hannah, making her feel miserable for not having any children and for being her husband's favourite too. So that's motivation for her to taunt her, because she's not the favourite. She did this especially when the family went to the tabernacle each year. Yes, every year this whole nasty scene played out as they all went up to Shiloh together as a family. So, haha, Yahuwah made you barren, boo-hoo. So she's always mocking and bullying Hannah. It's Peninnah. Elkanah would sacrifice and give Hannah an extra portion, and then Peninnah would retaliate by slinging crap, verbally, slinging stuff at her, slinging crap at Hannah for being childless, finding comfort in the fact that she wouldn't be able to enjoy her extra food because now she felt like crap. But this particular year, it upset Hannah so much that she couldn't eat her festive meal, and instead she just wept and wept. So it's coming on her hard, it's coming down on her, this feeling of uselessness, of why am I even here? Why am I alive? My purpose in life, particularly back here, is to provide children for my husband, to satisfy him and continue the reign. I mean, what have we learned about the reign and the afterlife? Your husband's essence lives on through these children. So she was providing nothing, and she felt it. So this year she'd had enough. She's weeping. So Elkanah asked, Hannah, my darling, why are you crying? Come and eat with us. I know this is hard, but you've got to stop being so sad all the time. Isn't our life together enough? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? So when the sacrifice had been offered, Hannah pulled herself together and sat with her family, but got up afterwards and went to be alone with Yahusha in the tabernacle. And Eli the high priest was sitting in his chair near the door to the tabernacle. Interesting side note, a chair was an item of furniture. Really? Yeah, a chair. reserved for those of higher ranking. No chairs back here, only those with higher rank. And it was considered a position of honour. Unlike today, it was not a usual piece of furniture. For most people merely sat on the ground or on a rock. Nothing at all to do with the story, just thought you'd find that useless piece of information useful. So, Eli is sitting on his chair near the door of the tabernacle, and Hannah's gone in there to pour out her heart. So Hannah, broken-hearted and crushed in spirit, fell down and wept before Yahusha. O Yahuwah of hosts, there it is again, hosts. O Yahuwah of hosts, I'm your servant, but I'm so tired of being upset and miserable. Well, we can relate to this. You've ever prayed, ever communicated to Yahusha like this before? I'm so tired of being upset and miserable, ignored and neglected. I can't take it anymore. Please see my pain and suffering and let me have a son. So she's got specific requests. Let me have a son, for I'm your servant, and I'll do anything you want. I'll even give the child back to you for as long as he lives, and his hair will never be cut by a razor, she vowed. Interesting. So she's poured her heart out to Yahusha. And we hear about her devoting Samuel, doesn't know it's Samuel yet, but devoting her child to come back to Yahusha, and never cutting his hair, which begs the question, was Samuel a Nazarite like Samson? And when we went through that with Samson, the Nazarite vow, weren't allowed to drink grape products, weren't allowed to touch dead things, I think it was, and weren't allowed to cut your hair. Was Samuel a Nazarite like Samson? The vow that Hannah vowed, was the vow of a Nazarite, and it was done in a similar way as Samson's mother did to have her barren condition reversed. Samson's mother was barren too, remember? Usually, a Levite would never be a Nazarite. Why? Usually a Levite would never be a Nazarite because the whole idea of taking a Nazarite vow was to get special status to serve Yahusha like the Levites did. But Levites were automatically born with the right to serve Yahusha at the tabernacle. So it's kind of redundant for Hannah to make a Nazarite vow on behalf of her son-to-be, Levite son-to-be Samuel. Because as we've discovered, he's got Levite lineage. So why is she basically taking out a Nazarite vow for this child when he's a Levite? He has the rights to serve anyway. Let's find out. Levites were generally not required to begin their full-time sanctuary service until they were 25 years old. And normally they were released from it by the age of 50. So that's a 25-year window that you served specifically at the tabernacle. Certain tribes, certain clans of Levi did certain things around the tabernacle, but from 25 to 50 you served. But in our case with Samuel, he would be Yahusha's property right away due to Hannah's vow. And Samuel would begin to serve even as a small child and would not be released until his death. So it's not like a Levite right, is it? The 25-year window. No, this is from birth to death, really. So therefore, I have no doubts this was a Nazarite vow. Just in case you were wondering, she took out a Nazarite vow, even though he was a Levite. And so she's pouring out her heart to Yahusha and vowed to give the child back if he would just give her one. And Eli, the high priest, was watching Hannah, for she was crying to Yahusha for a long time. But her pleading was mainly silent in her heart. Her lips were moving, but there was no sound. And Eli thought she was drunk. Now, why would he jump to that conclusion? That's what baffled me before I looked into this. Why would you look at somebody, crying out or praying, as they say? Why would you look at someone and just assume they're drunk? Why would Eli jump to that conclusion? Surely people go to the tabernacle to communicate with Yahusha all the time. He thought that probably because he had to regularly deal with worshippers who drank lots of ritual wine before they came before the sanctuary tent to speak to Yahusha. Remember, this was a very dark age of confusion and apostasy for Yisrael, and I imagine we know little of all the depravities and nonsense that went down under the guise of obedient spiritual communication and worship. That makes sense? We don't really know the depth of depravity that was going on. And calling it worship. No, this isn't worship. This orgy we're having here in front of the tabernacle, this is worship. No. All this stuff was going down. We learnt that. This is happening at the same time, if I'm not about to say it later. This is happening at the same time as Judges, remember the story? So Eli goes up to her. How long are you going to stay drunk? Sober up and get with it. You've had enough. You're cut off. No more. What are you doing in the tabernacle, drunk as a skunk? What are you doing here? And she says, no, master, please. You don't understand. I'm not pissed. I'm not pissed like one of those worthless, immoral women. I haven't even been drinking at all. I'm just beside myself with grief. So miserable and upset. And I've been crying to Yahuwah this whole time, hoping that he'll hear me and help. Well, it's time to go in peace now. You should go home and stop worrying so much. I'm sure the Elohim of Yisrael will answer your request. Nice fellow, isn't he? Thank you, Master. I only seek I only seek his favor. I only seek his favor, Hannah said. Then she left, and after eating something, she felt much better. The act of pouring out herself to Yahusha in complete honesty brought peace and comfort to her. It's not that she became certain that she would now conceive. It's just that the intimacy with Yahusha, done in a humble and sincere manner, gave her that peace that passes all understanding, that Yahusha's bride today also receives through his portal. It's not that our circumstances necessarily change. In fact, they might get worse. It's that somehow Yahusha gives us an unspoken assurance that he hears, is with us, loves us, and that whatever happens, it will be okay. Hannah's state of mind was so elevated that her appetite returned. Haven't you been in that situation before? You pour your heart out, or you get out, you speak the truth with friends, family, whatever, you get it out. The things that have slowly accumulated, things you've slowly listened to, the confusion, the heartache, you get it out of you. You have a look at it and go, well, that was a whole lot of BS, wasn't it? Sorry, everybody, I'm sorry. You get all that crap out of you. And Yahusha floods you with his love. Your circumstances don't change. You still look the same, smell the same, but he gives you that peace. If we'll only be honest with him. That's what he wants from his bride, brothers and sisters. Honesty. Honesty with the bride. Honesty with him. Honest to yourself. If you're feeling it, cry out and talk to him. That's what the 3 rules are for, not for other people to judge them, for yourself. Why do I feel like crap? What have I taken personally? What's going down? What am I letting someone have? Am I making excuses to myself? I'm lying to myself. Got to be honest, guys. Look at what Hannah's just gone through. And this is in the dark, dark times of Scripture, apostasy and the Judges. And she's found peace with Yahusha in the tabernacle. Even with this ass hat hanging around, So, Elkanah, and don't you love his eyes? He looks a bit daft, doesn't he, this guy? Look at his eyes. Elkanah and his family got up early the next morning and bowed down before Yahusha. Then they went back home to Ramah. And later Elkanah slept with his wife Hannah, and Yahusha indeed remembered her. Remember, he said that back at the time of Exodus with the children of Yisrael. He remembered their cries. It's nothing to do with memory. Nothing to do with memory. But about activating his plan and his timing. You believe that everything's in his timing, or do you think he's just fallen asleep? No. Everything is about his timing. It's just one of those, and I forget the word now. It's one of those words I always put up there that I forget. Big long word. Putting human attributes to Yahusha. He remembered. It's just a way of saying he activated his plan. When Yahusha remembers someone, it's to bring blessing, not calamity. That's interesting. When the scripture says he remembers someone, it's to bring blessing, not calamity. And Yahusha did bless her with a son, and she named him Samuel, or Shemuel, which means the name of your Elohim, because she had specifically asked Yahusha for him. Now, as we've dealt with before, the term name, because Shemuel means name of Elohim. Shem is name, and Al is Al. Name of Al. The term name doesn't really mean Jerry or Bob or Kate. Rather, a better way to think of it is his attributes or essence or character. So it meant that Elohim, Yahusha, is the father and Samuel is his offspring. Not literally, but figuratively. Yahusha had actively caused Hannah to become pregnant, just as he had for many years before actively causing Hannah to be barren. So he's actively made her pregnant, just as he actively made her barren for many years. Therefore, she's but giving Yahusha the esteem. So the name Samuel is giving Yahusha the esteem, the fact that Samuel's come into existence. That makes sense? So, and excuse me for the Lego brick pictures. I don't think Elkanah and Hannah went to Funky Town with the other wife still sleeping in the other bed, in the same bed. I don't think they got it on that way back here. Don't think Yahusha would have approved of that. But anyway, that's what the Lego bricks are saying. So Samuel's born. And the next time Elkanah and his family went to offer their yearly sacrifice, he took along a gift that he had promised to give to Yahusha. But Hannah stayed home because she had told Elkanah, Samuel and I won't go until he's old enough for me to stop nursing him. Then I'll give him to Yahuwah, and he can stay there at Shiloh for the rest of his life. A child in this era was weaned from the breast and no longer a child in this era was weaned from the breast and no longer treated as a baby, around about 3 to 5 years old. So anywhere around there was how long? So she said, I won't go with you this time. I won't go with you this year. I'll wait till he's weaned. Whatever you feel is best, darling, Elkanah said. Stay here until he's a little older, and I'm sure Yahuwah will help you do what you've promised. So Hannah didn't go to Shiloh again until she'd stopped nursing Samuel. The other interesting thing here is that we've got to understand is that Hannah has made a vow. And by what Elkanah, her husband, is saying, whatever you feel is best, darling, is Elkanah is validating Hannah's vow in agreement, which is both a duty and the choice of a husband. If you look at Numbers 30, we did this yonks ago. This is if a woman's made a vow, but if her husband makes her words null and void on the day he hears them, then whatever she said, whether vow or binding obligation, will not stand, because her husband has voided them, and Yahusha will forgive her. So Yahusha will forgive the vow if she can't keep it, if her husband says no way. But as we said, so it's the husband's right to do that and responsibility to back her up if she's made a vow, or make it null and void if it's ridiculous. And as you can see here, whatever you feel is best, darling, he's backing her up. So it's interesting. This is always looking for the patterns, yeah, in their behavior. Why do they talk like this? Because the husband was meant to do that. When it was the time of year to go to Shiloh again, Hannah and Elkanah took Samuel to the tabernacle in Shiloh, as well as a 3-year-old bull, 20-pound sack of flour, and a clay jar full of wine. Hannah and Elkanah offered the bull as a sacrifice, then brought the little boy to Eli, the high priest. What a bittersweet moment that must have been for Hannah, as she led little Samuel by the hand and turned him over to Eli. Master, Hannah said, A few years ago, I stood here beside you and asked Yahuwah to give me a child. And here he is. Yahuwah my Elohim gave me what I asked for. So now I'm entrusting him to you and giving him back to Yahuwah to be his servant for his whole life. So Elkanah bowed down before Yahusha at Shiloh, and Hannah rejoiced, saying, I'm bursting with joy, Yahuwah, for you make me so strong and happy, and my horn means strength, dignity, and authority, my horn rises up in you. I rejoice in your deliverance. Yahuwah plus deliverance is Yahusha. So it's interesting. She's rejoicing in Yahuwah's deliverance. She's rejoicing in Yahusha. And I laugh in the face of my enemies. Surely I'm walking on sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows now, for there is no other Elohim like you, my King. We are safer with you than on the highest rock. Did Hannah speak the name of Yahusha without even realizing it? 1,200 years before his arrival, through his inspiration? We don't know. We're just guessing. But she says she rejoices in Yahuwah's deliverance. She could have said the word Yahusha. Who knows? So, and we haven't gone into the whole thing about the horn right now, but it comes up, this word horn comes up in Daniel a lot and Revelation. It's just secret code words for strength, dignity, authority. The beast with horns at this and that and this, that's what horn means. So they've given Samuel over to Eli, the high priest. So Hannah expresses a concept of Yahusha that was only now just beginning to catch on in Yisrael. What's this? Hannah expresses a concept of Yahusha that was only now just beginning to catch on in Yisrael. And it's the fact that Yahusha isn't just Yisrael's only Elohim. He's the only Elohim in existence. How long have we been going on about this now? This was a statement of monotheism. What was? Up here when she's saying this. There is no other Elohim like you, my King, we are safer. All that is what she's starting to say here. Statement of monotheism. She says that there's no rock that can compare to Yahusha. No rock that can compare to Yahusha. Rock had become a common expression for Yahusha in Yisraelite culture and was slowly becoming a term that had prophetic messianic significance. Prophetic messianic significance. Until we finally reach the Gospels text where rock specifically referred to the Messiah himself. He's the rock. So Hannah has just given her child over to Samuel, and she's not sad. She's honored that, she can fulfill her vow. And remember, it was all often about status back then. Not that she didn't love the child, but it was about status as well. She was no longer barren. She was no longer being ridiculed. She didn't necessarily have to raise the child to be a mother. You know what I'm saying? She had that lifted off her. She was free. So we'll finish with this, guys. Hannah's song. This is the next chapter. As Hannah rejoiced before Yahusha, saying, Go and tell all those proud, boasting sons of bitches to shut their pie holes, for Yahuwah knows everything that's happening with me and what's going down all over Yisrael town. For it's obvious he sees and judges everything we do and say, isn't it? Oh, Yahuwah, you smash down the weapons of the warriors, giving strength to everyone who stumbles. The rich and the gluttons are out begging in the streets for scraps, while the poor and starving are fed in abundance, coming back for seconds and thirds. The barren woman finds herself with a house full of children, while the mother of many grieves, losing them all. Master, you bring death and you bring life. You take people to the grave and you raise them up again. You bring poverty and you bring wealth, lowering some and lifting up others. Oh, Yahuwah, you put poor people back on their feet again, picking them up from the street gutters and garbage dumps. You rekindle and restore the hopeless, burnt out lives. You rekindle and restore the hopeless, burnt out lives, filling and infusing them with fresh hope, giving them back their dignity and respect again, so that they can join you again in the sun as royalty. Don't you know that the whole formation and structure of the earth is Yahuwah's? For he's laid out his plans. He's laid out his plans and order on a firm foundation. He protects and cares for his trusted friends, but leaves the wicked and the evil stumbling around in the dark. Sheer brute force and muscle won't help you in this life, for Yahuwah blasts his enemies right out of the sky when he fights back, and they will crash and burn big time. Yahuwah, I know that you will judge this whole earth and make things right again, giving power and strength to your chosen king, who will rule this world and exalt the horn of his anointed. Interesting. Borderline prophetic here. I know that you will give strength and power to your chosen king, who will rule this world and exalt the horn of his anointed. Exalt the strength, dignity, and authority of his anointed. What are we talking about? Then Elkanah and Hannah went back home to Ramah, but the child Samuel stayed to help serve Eli. Stayed to help Eli serve Yahuwah. After dropping off the kindergarten age Samuel at Shiloh and entrusting him into the care of the high priest Eli, Elkanah, Hannah, and Peninnah packed up and returned to their home in Ramah, and Samuel began serving Yahusha at this startling early age, as this was the lifestyle his mother had dedicated him to for his whole life. Isn't that amazing, all these words of rejoicing? And isn't it so true? If you want to go through it again, just rewind a bit and go through it all. It's amazing, the words that come out of Hannah's mouth. She's rejoicing. She's so ecstatic about what Yahusha's done in her life. And of course, it's prophetic. Chosen king, anointed. It's got very heavy messianic tones to it, hasn't it? The deliverer is coming. It's official. The deliverer is coming. We haven't heard too much, I don't think, so far since we've started Genesis. There haven't been too many promises of a coming Messiah yet. But we're starting to get this now. And that's the big thing that's going to drop in Samuel and Kings, this whole idea of a king, you know. The deliverer is coming. It's official. This song of Hannah, a psalm of thanksgiving, which has the same soaring tone as many of David's psalms. This psalm is almost a prophetic framework for all that is going to follow in the books of the kingdom. 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings. And in an even broader sense, all set apart scripture that follows it. So this prayer, this song, this psalm that Hannah's just said is a prophetic framework for everything that's coming up, which is so exciting. After all the groundwork we've laid in the first 5 books of Moses and then Joshua and Judges and all this, we're finally starting to see a little bit of a light at the head of the tunnel. You know, we're going to see some hope, you know. Hannah's personal experience with Yahusha is the force behind her words, and those experiences are expressed in such a way in this psalm that it actually results in a beautiful and profound statement of Yahusha's unrivaled perfection and nature. Hannah is like Job. She's found herself receiving great affliction from Yahusha for reasons unknown. However, she has also found herself receiving the greatest mercies and blessings from him, also for reasons unknown. And on another level, while this psalm is but one individual's passionate and moving words, inspired by her own deliverance experience, it also applies to all Israel as a nation. But as we relate to this, guys, Hannah's received great affliction from Yahusha, just like Job did, for reasons unknown. I don't think any of us can really honestly look at our life, look at our afflictions, look at our calamities, our consequences, and go, I don't know why it happened. I don't know why this is happening. I don't think any of us can be in that place of innocence, you know. Maybe as we go along and we are perfected more and things go wrong, or we are tested in ways, it might be we don't know what's happening right now. and you just got to wait it out. But most of the time, something bad's going down. We know why. It's either coming from someone else, and we've been given tools on how to handle that, 3 rules, or it's coming from something we've done, we've said, we've thought, whether back here or now. There's not usually too much confusion as to why things are happening in your life the way they are. So let's get real. Be honest with yourself. Yahusha wants honesty. So this is Hannah's cry. This is Hannah's psalm. One individual's passionate, moving words inspired by her own deliverance experience, but also applies to all Yisrael as a nation too. And this is interesting. When we read Luke chapter 1, we see Yahusha's own mother, Miriam, almost saying word for word the same thing as Hannah, speaking of the coming deliverer. Interesting. Hannah's words had messianic overtones, but Miriam's was directly speaking about the Messiah's birth. Hannah saw the Redeemer as Yahuwah, the Creator, in the ┕𝗪𝗡, but Miriam, Yahusha's mother, actually sees her son Yahusha as Yahuwah, the Creator, in the flesh. So he's not just up in the other dimension somewhere, as Hannah thought, up in the sky, up in the heavens, whatever she thought. Miriam actually faced that he is the Creator in the flesh, incarnate. Just pulling a parallel there between what Miriam says and what Hannah said here. Hannah's song ends with the whole reason that Yahusha gave her Samuel, to anoint the new king of Yisrael. And this king is to be unlike the kings brought to power by men. This king shall be Yahusha's king, and so Yahusha will lend some of his power to his anointed king. When we realize that the Hebrew word for anointed is Mashiach, which we translate as Messiah, then we can see that for the first time in the scripture, the concept of Messiah being connected with a king is presented. Got that? So we're making ground here, guys. We're not just, laboring through these scriptures for nothing. This is the first time in our scriptural journey that I myself started two years ago. This is the first time we're connecting it to the concept of Messiah being connected with the king. Yeah? This makes Hannah's experience and contribution to Yisrael's history of redemption even more amazing and central. What a blowout. So, because they'd never had a king before, they'd never even had a land, they'd never even had any kind of unity before. This was just Abraham's ancestors wandering around like idiots. They've been given a land, they're squandering it, they're not even doing what Yahusha told them to do. Now they're losing some of it as far as oppression goes, and they need a king to unite them. That's the whole theme here. This wasn't a wrong thing. This is what Yahusha wanted for them, a king. So, let's kick this ball home. Can you see Yahusha moving and speaking through the experiences of his bride today in the 21st century to prepare a people perfect and ready for his coming reign? A reign of perfection, reign of purity, of loving kindness and eternal peace. Again, this is why we are going through the maturing and transformation to make us ready. Why? Because we aren't yet. Only 8 people made it on the ark the first time. What if there was only 8 this time? I hope there's not. But what if there's only 8? You'd want to fight pretty hard if there's only 8 seats on the boat, 8 seats in the city. Like I said, I hope there's not, but you got to make it, guys. We're not ready. But we better hurry, because the last trumpet is about to sound. Many missed Yahusha's first arrival. Do we want to miss his triumphant return? The message has been sown. The fruit is growing. The witnesses of Yahusha's eternal blood covenant of deliverance are slowly beginning to shine. Who are the witnesses of Yahusha's eternal blood covenant of deliverance? Us. And we're slowly beginning to shine, just as the ark did. And even the creation itself is proof of Yahusha's existence, as it groans along with the rest of us for deliverance and the transformation of rebirth. Even the world, the earth is groaning for the transformation of rebirth. Let's finish with this, guys. 2 Peter chapter 3. The day of Yahusha will come sneaky, like a thief comes in the night. Suddenly, the sky will disappear with a great noise, and all the elements will melt with intense heat as the earth and all the grand achievements within it are frackled up. So, since everything's going to be destroyed in this way, what sort of people should we be in set apart and obedient behaviour? Waiting, watching, even hurrying this global destruction by our swift progress. Hurrying the process. We can hurry this up by our progress. Because he's already chosen his bride. Once she's ready, we're out of here. Yeah? So we can hurry this global destruction by our swift progress. Waiting, watching, hurrying. Knowing that Yahusha's promised us a new earth and a new sky. A whole brand spanking new universe. He promised us that. So yeah, we'll wait for that inheritance, thanks very much. Preparing ourselves so that we'll be in peace, spotless and blameless when he arrives. That's the path you're on, guys. In part of the behaviour revolution, and you can see that it's all behaviour. That's what you're going through. This isn't a matter of even about the world anymore and the witness that you are making. This is about you being able to get up in the morning, put your head up and say, I am chosen. I am royalty. You know, I don't have to listen to that. Buckle up your armour, your helmet, your sword, your shield, put it all on of a morning. I've got to. I've had plenty of videos and plenty of stuff I've gone through, all the BS that I've gone on with. And, you know, that's me. You got you to do. So let's do it. I found this account story adventure of Hannah really encouraging because she was devastated, lost, cursed, you know, and she didn't know why. She hadn't necessarily done anything specifically wrong, but Yahusha found it worthy to have her barren for the time that she was. And look what's happened when he lifts her out of it. And it's all, why? What's the reason? All I can say is it's for his credit, for his esteem. And look what came out of it. How many ridiculous children might she have had that were just a waste of space? But now, through waiting and crying out and mainly Yahusha's plan, look who came out of it. This is the origin story of Samuel. And we're going to learn about Samuel in our weeks coming. So, I love you guys. Stay strong, for goodness sake. If you fall over, get back up and keep going. Love yous.